With this video, I want to explore plank and downward dog because they're a common area where people who have shoulder issues can really struggle, particularly because we're now loading a lot more through our limb, and when we don't have great coordination and function up in the shoulder girdle, we can take that load through our elbows and our wrists. So what we think might be wrist and elbow issues are actually shoulder issues. So I want to play around with some exploration for you to utilize to explore what's going on in your body, okay? So from here, if we're in tabletop and you take your toes under, I want you just to lift your knees ever so slightly, okay? Now, the idea behind this is if I have my toes under, you can see I've got 2 points on the floor here, 2 points on the floor here, 2 points on the floor here. Toes, knees, hands. When I begin to lift my knees off the floor, I'm now taking a load somewhere in my body, right? Because I've taken from 6 points to 4 points. So somewhere in my body has to take the load. Now, a lot of people, what they tend to do is they say, okay, I'm going to grip through my abdomen, and now I'm going to lift, which is our way to do it. What I like to show people is this idea of being responsive in our body, because as we get into more full body movement, as we get into more complex movement, like think tennis, cross-country skiing, swimming, I mean, think of any movement that has our arms and lower body involved, is we're not wanting to train ourselves to be braced in those movements. We want to train ourselves to be agile and nimble and have a variety of ways of doing things. So this is step one of that, in a sense, right? We're moving into more of a responsiveness in our body as opposed to a bracing reactive state. So what I want you to think about is as you lift those knees off, where does your body respond? So rather than being anticipatory and contract and then lift, right, which is kind of bracy and breath holding, can you notice as you lift the knees, where do you take that load? And just where do you take that load? Do you take it in the wrist? Do you take it in your elbows? Do you notice it in your abdomen? Where do you take it? Now, some of you might say, well, where am I supposed to take it? And on this video, because I can't see you, what I'm going to say is I want you to notice where you do take it, right? Ultimately, we want to see you not having to utilize your elbows and your wrists, and that it's more within the abdomen. But what I don't want you to do with that information is all of a sudden say, okay, I'm going to now feel it in my abdomen. So, okay, abdomen, let's squeeze as you lift. I'm not one of those trainers. I want you to see if you can feel what happens as you lift those knees. Now from there, start to move the hips and the shoulders forward and back. So you'll notice I'm not lifting the knees way off the floor. I'm moving just shoulder and back, shoulders and hips forward and back. Yeah, knees stay where they are. Now the legs are probably going to feel this a little bit. Good, and then drop that down. Now, we're gonna play into downward facing dog. Now, before I get into downward facing dog, just a little caveat here. I am making an assumption that if you're coming to downward facing dog, you can bring your arm up alongside your ear like so, right? If you're unable to do that in an unloaded position, and now we're starting to load your body more specifically, now we could get ourselves into a bit of a predicament if you do this over time. So ideally, if you can't do this, and your ribs are flaring, to work with that shoulder girdle in your torso and the rest of your body for better function before you come into dog. Okay, so with that caveat aside, when you come in from this position, the movement is your hips, your knees, your ankles, and your shoulders, right? Hips, knees, ankles, shoulders. So you'll see my torso doesn't change. My ribs don't pop, my spine doesn't extend, nor does it go into a flexion, right? I'm lifting and I'm coming through those joint areas, and then I can come back down. So it's hips, shoulders, knees. And so just take a peek at it, because now what happens when we come into dog, what can happen is this can happen, or this can happen, and we move more through here or here, which can impact the way we load through our arms, and that can impact our shoulders. Okay, so then up we'll come. Okay, now from here we can play with plank. So as we go into plank, watch what I'm doing with my hips and my shoulders. Forward and back. See how my torso is staying pretty much the same all the way through that movement. And I'm noticing how my abdomen is changing, how it's absorbing the load, and the rest of my body. I'm not anticipatorily contracting my abdomen or knitting in my ribs. I'm only going as far as I can feel that connection. This is really, really important if you're someone who's had a diastasis or a C-section and you're recovering from any abdominal surgery. You might be able to do plank, but you're not doing it in a coordinated way. And if you're not doing it in a coordinated way, meaning that your abdomen's not kicking in an organic way, you could load your shoulders or even your SI area in a way that's not serving you. So one way to think about this is just pay close attention to as you're moving. Be mindful about it. As you're coming through, just notice where you feel like your ribs are wanting to pop or you're wanting to brace, or you're getting kind of grippy. Just notice the nuance of it. Coming forward and back. Good. All right, so those are a few ways to explore your shoulders in a bigger context to the rest of your body, and things to pay attention to and things to connect with and improve your coordination of. So happy exploring. If you want any more help from me, send me a DM. I'd love to help you improve your movement, feel more nimble, stronger, and just have that quieter sense of self and that honing of listening to your body to really know how to make it flourish and be vital. All right, take good care. Enjoy.